Our show for today, the final segment of our show for today, we're talking to Dr. Madu, and the topic is commercial and business investments in Africa. Dr. Madu, I think you were talking about some of the areas of social concern in reference to investing in Africa. Let's continue our discussion.
And the third obstacle, I've mentioned the first two, which is corruption, absence of data. The third obstacle is, a lot of the business is relational. Like I said, personalized in a lot of ways. And that can create a lot of problems, when your business interest is hinged on the person you're dealing with, not on the entity, they run or so. So that can be a problem. And the fourth problem here, which is very big, and most people don't understand it, is in French-speaking African countries. What most people don't understand, a lot of the problems in dealing with French-speaking Africa, what we call Francophone Africa, is that most of the commercial and business, interests are controlled by the French up to today. For example, 65% of the foreign reserve of all the French-speaking countries in Africa has to be deposited in the bank treasury in France. And that 10%, again, plus 10%, that's what you get about 75% there altogether. And that 10% of what they call for financial liability. All this has to be deposited by all the French-speaking African countries in
French franc.
Exactly, in the bank in Paris, without fail. So if you're doing business in those countries...
That's still the old colonial system. I mean, I think earlier you talked about some issues in Haiti, and one of the reasons that Haiti was in such a terrible situation financially is that it's still paying reparations.
That's correct. That's correct.
Speak of those are similar kinds of issues.
Exactly. So this is just kind of indirect. Exactly. So 65% of their foreign reserves have to be deposited in the French banks. Okay. Their currency. None of those French-speaking African countries has an independent currency. Their currency, called the CFA franc, is tied to the French franc. Okay, so that if there are any changes or turbulence in the French economy, all those Francophone African countries will start sneezing and coughing. Okay. So what happens here is that all the minerals and all that are controlled directly by the French. By the French. Okay, so this is a big obstacle to doing business. And why? Because if you're if you're an American business or British business or Chinese, and you want to do business in those countries, the French can stop you from going in there. And they do it quite often.
They can literally stop you from becoming involved in investments
in those countries. So absolutely. Oh yeah, they have a lot of ways of doing it. Yeah, like in the Ivory Coast, they control everything there in the Ivory Coast. And you saw how they removed Gbagbo. Okay, yeah, they control everything in the Ivory Coast, Mali, Burkina Faso. 50% or 60% or 70% of their budget comes from France. And that's why France wants this money deposited in their own bank, so they will use it to balance the budget of these countries. All the minerals, the French, have firm control over those minerals in the French-speaking African countries. I have a example. I have a direct, conflict with one of the French-speaking countries in the early 90s. One day, the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to the Central African Republic, called me on the phone here and said he had my name on Radio Bangui, in Central African Republic, that I was coming to the country to meet with President Patase at the palace, So I said, no, he's supposed to be coming here, not me going there. Yeah, he's supposed to come here with his entourage, not me. So I said, okay, can you get me a communique in their newspaper, because if you announce something on the radio, one way or the other, it should be in the paper. So can you get me that article in the paper? So he said, they don't have a newspaper. So what do you mean by they don't have a newspaper? He said, well, they read Le Figaro and Le Monde, and all these are published, published in France. I couldn't believe it. So when the ambassador came here, Dr. Koba, so I asked him this question. He said, it's true. I said, okay, why don't we do this? Why can't I arrange for a publishing company here to publish, a newspaper for your country every month? At least we start with 10 to 15,000 copies. You all do the you know, the writing there.
Okay,
Just
and then
send it down here, print it, and we ship it back there. So he said, that's a good idea, I will get back with you. So he went and talked with the Minister of Information and the palace, and came back to me and said, they said, no, they can't do it because the French wouldn't like it.
Wouldn't like it.
Yeah, exactly, wouldn't allow it. Because
and so France really has a